I remember when we first set up the Council of Ex-Muslims 5 years ago, one of the people who first wrote about the manifesto was AC Grayling. In Guardian, he wrote about the courage of the conviction, I remember. And that gave us great encouragement. In the last 5 years, AC Grayling has been a really close friend of this campaign, this organization. He's supported us, he's encouraged us, and I have great pleasure to invite him today to open today's speech for celebration of the 5th anniversary of the Council of Ex-Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, AC Grayling.
Well, we all know absolutely why we're here. We're here to support a very brave, very courageous and very important campaign. For me, the campaign has two main nodes of importance. One is that it shows people who are wanting to leave Islam, wanting to avow the fact that they wish to be free of a religious commitment and to be able to do the things that that kind of freedom permits. They show that it's possible to do it, that there are friends available to them, that there's a home for them, there's somewhere that they can go and be among people who are like-minded. That's tremendously important, because if there weren't such an organisation, then people who are in that position could feel very isolated. It would make it much more difficult for them to take that step. And it's a big step sometimes. It sometimes follows a long process of agony, of wrestling with conscience, of fearfulness about what the family, the community might say. And so knowing that there are other people who have that experience and who would welcome them and give them the kind of support that they need is crucial. So this organisation, from that point of view, is absolutely vital. But the second thing which is important about it, in my view, is that the history of the world, not just of the Western world, but of the world in the last 3 or 4 centuries, has turned on a very crucial fact. The fact that there were people who had the courage to think for themselves. Now, I should open a footnote here, just say about thinking for yourself. We all know that rather few people do that. Bertrand Russell famously said, most people would rather die than think, and most people do. So we know that there is a lot of thinking for yourself that goes on. And we also know that the phrase thinking for yourself, or I think for myself, is something that can be used by people who actually don't really think for themselves. They've adopted wholesale the outlook on the world that was first devised by illiterate go-turds 3,000 years ago, fundamentally. And so there's not a great deal of thinking for themselves. But what they do is they say, or claim that they've thought through their commitments and they've chosen them, they're committed to them, and therefore they're thinking for themselves. And what we need to say to such people is, whatever it is that you do think, whatever outlook on the world you take, you have to be able to offer us a case for that, which will stand up to real critical scrutiny. Nobody really should adhere themselves to any view, to any commitment, unless they have good grounds for doing so. And it's people who move from a position of traditional outlook, or one that they acquired in childhood because if they were educated into it in childhood. It's people who move from that into a position of greater openness of thought, greater freedom of conscience, who are admirable because they are the ones who've done the thinking for themselves. They are the ones who have considered a case so they can put that case, and they've done something which in personal terms as well as in more general terms is a very courageous thing to do. Now, most of us here, I think, are happy to live in a society where it's possible to do this. There are people elsewhere in the world where it's dangerous for life and limb to do this kind of thing. We can set some kind of example here by asserting the value of an open society where people can think about things, get in information, look at the evidence, look at the reasons, and take a decision and a stand, providing, of course, that they can do that thing I mentioned earlier, which is to give that case independently. And that means that we can be some kind of beacon to people elsewhere in the world for whom this isn't possible. Even here, it takes great courage. The organisers of the council, I have the fullest admiration to them. For them. I mean, they are so brave. They stand out in public. They expose themselves to the criticism and even indeed the danger that might be posed to them by people who are deeply opposed. And so it's a very small thing that the rest of us do in supporting them and in applauding what they do. But I just end on this note. I mentioned that for 3 or 4 centuries now we've seen that almost every aspect of progress in human affairs has come from the liberation of thought, from people being able to think things that were once forbidden. I mean, right from the 16th century onwards, with the growth of science, with the challenge posed by individuals at last thinking for themselves and asking, why should I have no say over my own life? Why should I accept traditional views that have been handed down about the universe? Why should I not be able to challenge people with whom I disagree? Why can't I make important decisions for myself? That process, right from the 16th century, right through the Enlightenment of the 18th century, right into our own time, has been the single most important factor in allowing progress to happen in human affairs. We can't let it go back, we can't let it backslide. We all think sometimes that with the apparent resurgence of religion in our world and the religious voice, personally I think this is the increase in volume, not numbers, of a community of people who feel more and more under pressure and more backed into the corner. So I think there's some grounds for optimism here. And the more noise they make and the harder they fight back and the more they reinvent themselves, the more we can take a bit of comfort in what's going on. But that doesn't absolve us from the responsibility for keeping on making the case and doing what the Council of Ex-Muslims do, and that is make it possible for people to be free in their minds and in their persons from the constraining and deleterious effects of these ancient oppressive regimes of thought. So I applaud what they do. We're here to support them. A big round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen. One of the benefits of being part of this organization is you not only benefit from the cutting-edge campaigning and political activity and work on the ground, but you meet great minds and people who are at the forefront of science as well. Science, literature, art. Today we have one of the people the forefront of science, somebody who's doing enormous work in the field of public understanding of science. He is, of course, the most distinguished physicist and author of A Universe from Nothing. I'm delighted to welcome Lawrence Krauss today to join us.
An undeserved pleasure. I just landed from the United States, and I have very little that's intelligent to say, but that never stops me. And Anthony's, it's hard to follow Anthony because, of course, he's so clear and coherent. But there are 2 things I want to say. I want to say that I'm not an ex-Muslim, in case you're wondering. But in the spirit of John F. Kennedy, I was going to say, we're all ex-Muslims. But that's not true because, well, it is true in the sense that all of us are fighting ignorance and superstition and a world where policies are made on the basis of those things and people are oppressed on the basis of those things. So we're all in that fight together. But it's really unfair to you for me to say that we're all ex-Muslims because there's very little threats on me to ridicule or make fun or even try and promote truth. And the bravery that you all have in the efforts you do is something I admire tremendously. So that's why I was willing when asked to come here after landing at Heathrow to be able to just say how much I admire the programs that you're doing and what you're involved in. And I think when I think of the major challenges, and Anthony really referred to them, for me recently it's hit home in the United States, a few events that just happened that I just wrote about, that not just Islam, but all of the world's organized religions, people can say they're innocuous because, you know, if they don't involve hatred and killing, which they do, they just involve, you know, hoping for the best and thinking good thoughts, and that's not true, because what they do is openly encourage people to not only accept nonsense, but deny the truth. Deny the evidence of empirical reality in many different ways, and that inevitably cannot help but be a bad thing. Because inevitably, if you are in control of anything, be that women or children or the state, you will make bad policies if your policies are based on fairy tales that are untrue. You'll put women in bags. You'll kill homosexuals, or in my country, not allow them to marry. You'll do that on the basis of ideas that are clearly ridiculous. And so it seems to me if we want to try and have an impact, I know from having listened to Maryam very eloquently recently in Canada when we were together, that when you speak out against the curse that is Islam for many people around the world, you're treated as if you're biased, as if you're racist. But really what we need to speak about is that the basis of that religion is nonsense. Just like the basis of Judaism and Christianity is empirical nonsense. That someone didn't ascend to heaven from a place they'd never been during their life. And it seems to me if you attack and expose that nonsense, you can't be called racist. And at some level that may help. Instead of always talking about the persecution and the denial of civil rights, which is vital, ultimately it seems to me that ridicule is the most powerful tool we have to display nonsense and get people to think. And so for me, I encourage you, and I will continue to ridicule nonsense wherever I find it and support your efforts. And I applaud the fact that you're much braver than I am. Thank you very much.
Kate Smurthwaite is one of the best comedians around with a passion for equality and justice. You cannot get away from Kate's witty comedy and razor-sharp tongue if you try. She has performed more than 2,000 shows, and I wouldn't like actually to start counting. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate Smurthwaite.
Yeah, actually I was like, that's brilliant, isn't it? Yes. Right, so thank you very much for having me. It's really lovely to be here. I hope you don't think I'm being rude when I say that I was just a teeny little bit disappointed with the food. I was sort of hoping we'd all have bacon sandwiches and vodka shots. That seemed like the way forward for me. And it's interesting, we had a brilliant conversation as I arrived about people's names and how many people have religious names, and I guess that's understandable. I do find it quite weird these days when people who are atheists give their children names with religious connotations. I met an atheist couple recently who had called their child Christian. And I had to say that I thought a much better choice would be Godfrey. And we've also been chatting at the table actually about creationism, and I guess I have a suggestion for dealing with creationism. I think the following: I think that anybody who doesn't believe in evolution should be given last year's flu jab. Seems like the way forward. Yeah, so it's always strange to be here. I've just been on tour in Northern Ireland. And interestingly enough, before I left for Northern Ireland, everybody I knew on the UK comedy circuit started telling me what I shouldn't say in Northern Ireland to avoid offending the wrong sort of religious person by mentioning the wrong sort of religious thing. And it was very strange because I grew up in Suffolk at the time when there were troubles in Northern Ireland, and I remember asking my religious education teacher what the difference between a Protestant and a Catholic was, and she said that it was about transubstantiation, about whether bread turned into meat. And I really think that we should allow people to continue with sectarianism in their religion, provided they stick to the rules. So, you know, Rangers fans would be entitled to stand up during football matches and shout, "It's only a fucking wafer!" if they want to. But I love the idea of somehow it being... I love the idea that we might one day be waiting in the afterlife and we'll be stood around going, "See, told you, look, there's no God. If we know he'll be here in a minute, I'm sure he will." And going, "No, look, there's definitely no God. What has happened to God?" And the Catholics might go, "I think we've met him." Beautiful. But you know, this is when I was at school, and at school I had this RE teacher who was a born-again Christian, who was a very devout Christian, and she had this thing which she used to say all the time, that you might as well be religious, because if there is a God, you've bought a ticket to heaven. And I have a problem with this, because it's not really about a ticket to heaven, isn't it? At very best, it's a lottery ticket to heaven, because there's all these different religions and they all teach that everybody else isn't going to heaven. And I quite like the idea that might be queuing at the afterlife going, "Oh, what have you got?" "Oh, this one's going to work. I've got Zeus, king of the gods." "Oh, I'm really sorry, but more recently we've been up Mount Olympus. There's nothing there." "Oh no, I'm going to win it. What have you got?" "Amaterasu, Japanese sun goddess." Because as with comedy competitions, it's always nice to have a woman in the final. She's not going to win. Maybe some guy at the back, really happy. "What have you got, mate? What have you got?" "Oh, definitely, I've got David Icke." Good luck. Some of you may have missed out on David Icke. He used to be a sports commentator. Then he showed up in a turquoise tracksuit and said he was the son of God. Every year he says something weird, doesn't he? He comes out and says something weird. A couple of years ago he said the royal family were lizard people. Which is wrong, it's David Cameron, isn't it? Now, those of you who do know me, probably know me, you might know me from all sorts of places, but you probably know me from a clip on the internet of me on the big questions, which is sort of what, I did not invent this word, or this title, but it has become widely known as the atheist bitch slap. And if you don't know it, please look it up. I won't repeat any of it. What I will say is that when you have clips like this on the internet that go viral, it has like over 1 million hits, people on the internet add their opinion. And I'm sure lots of you who express your opinions publicly, and all kudos to you for doing so, I'm sure lots of you get feedback on the internet. And I've noticed that nobody on the internet ever has the opinion, "I thought both sides made excellent points." That's not quite how the internet works. So I get all these amazing comments. One person wrote underneath this clip, they wrote, "I would rather be an idiot believer than an intelligent non-believer." And I had to write back and say, "Good news." Recently on Twitter, I had a personal first, which I was really excited about. I was threatened with the rapture. And so I replied, as I thought I ought to, and said, "I don't want to alarm you, but wasn't that supposed to happen last year?" And this guy wrote back and said, "No, the people who think that are insane." Which is beautiful. I also was having a debate about abortion recently, and somebody, obviously very angry, had written underneath, "Having an abortion is like being raped by the devil." Which is a weird thing to say, because I think even if you feel very strongly that you oppose abortion, you would have to say if there's one time that a woman ought to have one, my favourite thing anyone has ever written about me on the internet is this: "Has fat arms, so must be a lesbian." Because I don't think either of those things are real insults, I don't think either is true, but I love the idea there's a link, that somebody might one day fighting women, but the arms are gone. And I want to say, all the people who have been saying serious things have made brilliant jokes, so I hope you will forgive me if I say one serious thing before I get back to funnies, before I wrap up. But I was thinking, but as I say, when I was at school, I was taught very little. My RE teacher was an evangelical Christian, so all of our religious education was always about Christianity and how it was definitely right. And so we were taught very, very little about Islam. And I was thinking about, over the years, where I've picked these things up. And there is one specific example that really terrified me, and which I really wanted to share with you. I was watching a documentary about the invasion of Iraq. And I'm against war, by the way. And I certainly was, thank you. I feel like we don't actually need to clap, because we're probably all in on that one. But yes. It's because we've been on the big questions so much. You can feel the need to applaud when I say something reasonable. It was about the invasion of Iraq and how difficult it was for people living under the American-British regime out in Iraq. And there was a piece of footage of a bunch of Iraqi guys travelling across Iraq in the back of a covered van. And they were complaining bitterly about the British and American presence in Iraq. And one of them said, "It's terrible, we feel trapped in our own homes. We can't go anywhere." And then he said, "We feel like women." And so yeah, I was like, dude, you are really not helping your corner here. Now, those of you who've seen the Atheist Bitch Chat clip, there's one thing you may not know. It's on this BBC show called The Big Questions, which is on a Sunday morning, and I know a lot of people here have been on it, let alone seen it. It's an hour of Nicky Campbell asking the big questions, which for some reason are all about religion. I think I could do it in about 1 minute. There's one question, isn't it? And the answer's no. When that series is off the air, there is another show which goes on instead called Sunday Morning Live. And it's a very similar show in that they have a discussion, usually about a semi-religious topic or a religious topic, with different people. But unlike in the big questions, everybody's in the same room. Whereas on Sunday Morning Live, everybody is at home on a webcam, and they just cut between the different webcams. And shortly after the incident of the Atheist Bitch Slap, they rang me up and said, "Would I like to go on Sunday Morning Live?" And I said, "Yes, that's fine, and yes, I've got a webcam, and yes, that's great." What they wanted to discuss was the documentary that had been made for the BBC about the Prophet Muhammad, or as I like to call him, Muhammad. Because I think if you believe you can see the future, you have a mental illness. And I think it's very rude to describe people by their mental illness. If I came in and you said, "Oh look, 5 Smurthwaite's here," I'd be quite hurt. So they did this documentary, and as you may be aware, they decided not to show any images, because they didn't want to upset anybody by showing any images of Muhammad. And they asked me if I would go on TV and discuss this via webcam from home, and I said sure. And then for some reason they ran out of time, or there was a technical problem, or something happened, and somehow they never got to me. And I like to imagine that what happened was a discussion went on in the production office that went, "Seriously, you're going to ask Kate Smurthwaite to come on television live via webcam and discuss whether we should show images of Muhammad? Does anybody think she won't hold an interview wearing a turban and a fake beard, shouting, 'What?'" And I was totally going to do that, so they called it right. Thank you so much for coming, and kudos to all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There are some people who are embodiment of standing up for the principles, and by doing so, make people think at critical times and draw a line in the sand and effectively make society to think. A writer, a documentary filmmaker, and a co-editor of the Refusing Holy Orders, Women and Fundamentalism in Britain. She has written on gender, fundamentalism and human rights for the American Society of International Law, women living under Muslim laws and open democracy, and has made documentary films on forced marriage and human rights violation during the Bangladeshi War of Liberation. She was a member of the Sahgal Black Sisters and the founder of the Women Against Fundamentalism and Awaz South Asian Watch. She was the head of the gender unit at Amnesty International, leaving after irreconcilable differences over its relationship with Salafi Jihadi Defense Group. She is currently the executive director of the Center for Secular Space. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to Gita, Segal.
Thank you all very much. That's a lot of 3 hard acts to follow. So, and I don't think I have a single joke in the whole thing. So, I'm as Faribos said, working on secular space now and the issue of secularism. And of course, we don't live in a secular country. We live in a rather paradoxical way, in a country which is probably one of the most irreligious countries in the world, and where for some people, it's extremely easy to live without religion. I've lived without religion all my life in India and in Britain, and it has never, ever been dangerous for me. But I think the Council for Ex-Muslims is particularly important because it is dangerous to declare yourself having lost faith, even in Britain. And in fact, in some places, is getting more dangerous. And one of the reasons it's getting more dangerous is because the people who should be supporting freedom of belief, which means freedom of religion and belief in human rights law means the right not to have a religious belief, as well as the right to be able to practice religious belief. And yet, there's virtually no support from any public source, and I think the Council experiences this, and that's why we're having this fundraiser, for people who have actually left their religion. And in some places there is support. For instance, Christian evangelical groups will support people who have converted to Christianity from other religions. And many of them are indeed persecuted in many countries across the world. But they don't support people who have lost faith. And there are very, very few secular groups who support people in difficulties who've lost faith. And that's what I think is really important about the Council for Ex-Muslims. And that's why I think it is part of an indivisible struggle, that where you would protest or support people, you know, unlike our previous speakers, I think you don't have to defend yourself for having irrational beliefs. What you do have to defend is whether you want to put those irrational beliefs into public policy and force other people to follow them. That's where I draw the line. So I think that it's legitimate to defend people who are believers if they're being murdered simply because of who they are, or if they're not allowed to, you know, set up a church and practice it. But at the same time, we have to vigorously and absolutely defend the right of people to leave any form of religion and to be able to declare it without being in danger of being charged with apostasy or blasphemy, being locked up, being socially boycotted, being excluded from your communities and so on. And I think this is the only organization, the Council for Ex-Muslims, that is actually working to support people in those situations. And I think you're enormously important, and congratulations for doing your work, and I hope we'll continue to work together in the future.
Thank you, Gita. Thank you very much. This campaign, which has been going on for about 5 years, has been supported by many people, hundreds of people. Some of you are here, but there are hundreds out there. Some people are present who actually support the work of this council. We've had about 20-page list of support, and a message of solidarity has been sent to us for today. All across the world, people from Britain, from different parts. We have some people who have always been supporting Council of Ex-Muslims. We have Terry Sanderson from National Secular Society and Keith Porteous-Wood. They've always been supportive of this council. We have Michael Nugent and Jane Donnelly from Atheist Ireland who are here today. We have LSC Atheist Group. We have Atheism UK, a colleague over there who's joined us today. There are many messages of solidarity, and I think this is important to recognise that this campaign is the voice of thousands upon thousands, and if I dare to say millions of people across the world, and it articulates that view that people have the right to criticise religion without fear for their life. Now, on that note, can I ask Shelley, Segal's singer and songwriter, to come and join us? Shelley is from Australia, Melbourne. She has been involved in secular activism for 2 years. Her songs are passionate response to dogmatic belief, inequality, and religious oppression. After performing earlier this year at the Reason Rally to a crowd of 25,000 people at Washington, D.C., Shelley's music video for her single Saved has gone global. We have the pleasure of having her. She's made an effort to come and join us today. Ladies and gentlemen, Shelley Segal.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and an honour to be involved in the celebration of 5 years of this council. I think it's such important work that you're doing. I'm very brave to be a voice for yourselves and also for others who can't speak out. I also have left my religion. I'm an ex-Jew. I became an atheist about 6 years ago, and after leaving my religion, with a bit of distance, I started to see some of the issues involved and how it can oppress human rights, and I started to write some songs about it. So this first song is called My Morality, and it's an answer to an accusation I get thrown at me very often, in fact happened this afternoon, was as an atheist or someone without a religious structure, where do you find your morals? How do you know what's right and wrong? And this is my answer to that question. When we have some music. Somebody's against us. There we go. My morality has nothing to do with the Bible or the verses of the Quran. My morality won't judge you by your spirituality, but by the things that you have done. My morality is not set into stone tablets who don't even tell you not to hurt children. My morality is not dictated by a deity, it's developed from empathy, dependence and love. My morality accepts everybody's sexuality, is more concerned with inequality than validations from above. My morality is not worthwhile to be good. Being good, don't say you're not to think for yourself can be a deadly mistake. My morality is not recitable from memory. It's something inside of me, how I want to be. Treat others how I want them to treat me. Basically, not to hurt anybody, oppose any brutality. It stems from our common humanity. It's what my mother taught me, and it's mine because I'm free. In Judaism, there is a word called sniut, and it essentially translates into modesty, and it refers to the modesty laws, so how women should dress and how women and men are supposed to interact. And one of the major problems that I saw when I first had some distance from my religion was the way that Judaism treats women and the way it assigns them particular roles, and in some ways is even present in Western culture, just the way that the response to women's sexuality is the responsibility of the woman. It's your actions towards me are not your responsibility. The blame is on me. And I asked Maryam the equivalent of this term in Islam, and she explained to me it's called irfat. So when I first heard Maryam speak at QED conference this year in Manchester, just hearing about what it was like for women in Islam really resounded with me, and I saw the parallels with this same subject in Judaism, and so I wrote this song, and it's called Ifat.
Inside a cage, I carry on my
do is the single from my album, an atheist album. And I guess it's a cry for secularism and a cry for freedom and to not be told how to live. It's called Save.
who's going to perform a dance for us. We're going to... Her work is inspired by Indian classical dance. We're going to talk about dance in a moment. Lloyd Newson is here. But let's start with a short piece from Maryam Free-Flag.
Thank you very much for having me here to dance today. I would also like to tell you that I'm also an ex-Muslim. I consider myself an ex-Muslim. And it's not something that I ever felt that I had to, it's not something that I ever identified before, but since becoming aware of this organisation, I realised it's actually very important for me to be able to stand here and say I am an ex-Muslim and not just forget about that aspect of my my growing up. So thank you very much to this organisation. It's a really important platform for people to have contact with. For me, dance is an exploration celebration of the beauty and grace that we hold within all of us. And in particular, this dance is about the choices and freedom that we have to make these choices when we honestly are true to our hearts and have belief in ourselves. Okay, thank you.